All right, our guest today is had a distinguished career as a player, then became a large figure in the American soccer media landscape, and is now an analyst for MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Taylor, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, what's going on, boys? How are you?
Doing well. Where do you live these days?
I'm still in Boston. They can't get rid of me. I've tried to get rid of Boston, but Boston can't get rid of me. So yeah, I'm still in Boston.
So you got a long flight out to LA coming up here soon.
Yeah, I mean, Landon, it's real simple. Pretty much since I've taken the Apple job, I've made 12 trips. 11 of those have been to the state of California.
So
Are you finding some favorite spots out there then? I would hope somewhere.
No, Jeremiah, I've been doing this for a while now. It's probably, what is it, my 14th, 15th year doing this, and whatever it is, it's the LA trip that the national broadcasters love. So I know my spots, but thankfully I don't have to pay California state tax just yet.
So you've been pretty outspoken about how good you think this Apple TV deal will be for MLS and for
Mhm.
American soccer. What has the experience been like for you so far?
I mean, listen, it's been a project that literally started 6 months ago. So uh, everyone's expectations, I think, that knows what Major League Soccer and Apple are trying to pull off. And so Rome isn't built in a day, right? So we're excited that we're off and running. We've got a good foundation. Can we grow and improve? Absolutely. It's not even a debate. But it's just the fact that Major League Soccer and its project with Apple, they pulled it off in, just over 6 months is quite an accomplishment. And that's something everyone on the outside probably doesn't need to hear about. But for those of us on the inside, I think we're appreciative of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to pull off. But this is a 10-year project, and it's 10 years where Apple and Major League Soccer are aligned with their energy, with their resources, and with their aspirations. And so, like I said 20 seconds ago, Rome wasn't built in a day. There's a good foundation, but I'm more excited about where this thing's going to go.
Yeah, can you expand on that a little bit? Because you had your choice of you could broadcast soccer wherever, and clearly you're pretty in and pretty big on this Apple deal. Like, what was it that appealed to you about it?
The fact that Jeremiah, it was all MLS. It was about Major League Soccer. It was about growing the league. It was about doing whatever it could to grow it. Listen, you have to tip your cap to what ESPN did for 27 years. This league wouldn't be in this spot if it wasn't for ESPN and its belief in the American game. And for 20 some odd years, it was Fox. And for about 2.5 to 3 years, that was NBC. The linear partners took it as far as it could go. But you guys see the local sports TV landscape is ever changing right now. I mean, Bally Sports is filing bankruptcy, and so you needed to find a way to go about and find a platform, and more so, a partner that was going to let you be you. Jeremiah, that's what sold me on it. It's not you're waiting for your previous game or programming. You're always apologizing for trying to sneak it in, for trying to sneak in your love for the game and your love for the league. And so Apple came in and basically said on with a blank piece of paper, how can we help you? How can we grow this thing? And there's going to be changes. There's going to be things they thought that would work that they're not going to work, and things that they thought were going to be great and they're even better. So I'm just excited that there's an opportunity, excuse me, to really grow the thing with the same energy that the owners want to have. You guys are in Austin. You guys are an Austin podcast. Anthony Precourt and the Board of Governors, they want to take it to another level, and they want to be ready when the World Cup comes here in 2026. I think Apple allows them to do so.
All right, well, let's jump into previewing this game between LAFC and Austin on Saturday. So LAFC has a really deep team this year. They lost a couple of guys like Chicho Arango, Gareth Bale, but brought in some seemingly so far great depth pieces and some other guys who have been starting for them. Palencia has been starting at fullback. Buke, who's been getting some time on that front line, and then Timothy Tillman has been playing really well in his minutes so far. And then, not to mention Aaron Long, one of the one of the best defenders in the last several years in MLS, is now on an already stacked team. So they've got this CCL game midweek against Vancouver. and it's a really congested string of games in this part of the schedule for them right now. Does that matter for this LAFC team? Does that actually hurt them, or are they deep enough to just be able to weather it all?
I think they're deeper than I thought they would be. And the fact that they're still making a signing here or there that makes them even deeper. How the heck they pulled off a player from Leeds United for just around $1 million is remarkable. Um, I think playing on turf in Vancouver may impact this team a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what lineup that Steve Cherundolo looks at and says, you know what, this is good enough to get a result in Vancouver on turf. And then I've got these players prepared for Austin coming into the home team. I don't think, listen, they've had some tired legs. They've looked a little tired. I just recently did them at Seattle. I thought the second half in Colorado was a little heavy-legged. Now, that could be altitude. That could be also the games. Listen, historically, we've seen CONCACAF Champions League congestion early in the season. It hinders teams. Now, I don't know if it's going to hinder LAFC now, but it does beg the question whether or not it's going to hinder them later. I just think this Saturday night, I don't know, guys. I think if you're Austin, you got to be very, very careful because this team right now is 2 players deep in every position. And you can make an argument 2 players deep that would start on any other team.
Yeah, it's amazing how they managed to build that kind of depth. So I want to talk about the Austin side of it a little bit. Austin's in, I think, no surprise, a bit of an offensive funk to date. So, drawing upon your experience as an attacking player, I believe was with over 100 goals in Major League Soccer, I think. What kind of things can lead to a situation where, like, there's a lot of weapons and they don't just seem to be able to connect? Like, what leads to that, and what's the path out of that?
That's a good question, Jeremiah. Honestly, I said this when they signed him, and it's less about him and it's more about Driussi, but I wasn't totally sure about Jazzy Zardes. I wasn't. And the reason why is Driussi plays in the 10 position, but he's not a 10. He's not. He's not a playmaker, but he makes plays. And I know people listening are going, is Taylor drunk right now?
I know.
My point is,
Austin fans will know exactly what you're talking about, though.
You know what I'm talking about, though. He almost plays as a like a false 9, a withdrawn center forward. That's why Urruti really worked well with him, I think, for a majority of last year, because Urruti's running around with his head cut off, and Driussi could find his spots. Zardes and Driussi, when I watch Austin from afar, guys, they're often in the same spots. They're often drawing defenders in the same positions when the ball gets wide. Now, I understand Josh Wolf coming from where he came from and as an assistant coach with Greg Berhalter, seeing what they did with Kai Kamara, with Higuain underneath. I just think Federico Higuain and Driussi are different players. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but I'm not surprised that it's not working, Jeremiah, because I just find that both players in the key critical moments that you saw last year, Austin finished those off. They're often in the same spots. Now, in saying that, I think the bigger concern is Gabrielsen being gone, arguably one of the top 3 best defenders last year. I think that's a huge miss. I think it's a huge miss, and they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, I don't know how much you've gotten to see of Leo Väisänen yet, but I think a bunch of people in Austin think Väisänen's the real deal. We were missing him last week to international duty. Cascante goes down in the first game, and so him and Ring have kind of been holding it together with tape and string back there for the last few games. But I think Väisänen will be the real deal, but with losing Gabrielsen and not it being both of them or having all 3 of those guys, it's a sideways move, it seems.
Yeah, and to your point, there's also injuries. You're playing Ring as a center back, right? So you're playing players out of position right now to fill the gaps. I agree with you. I'm not saying he's not that. I just think Gabrielsen was the real deal. So when you don't replace him, and okay, you replace him, but I still think the jury's out. Austin fans are going to tell me, no, we've seen enough. He's going to be the real deal. I don't know. I mean, what are you, 5 games in? We still don't know that. But the bigger concern, 100%, is scoring goals. And I don't think that's Zardes' fault. I just think the Zardes and Driussi combination, it seems a little stagnant.
So looking back to, I guess, last week, the Colorado game, versus LAFC, and then also Austin's win last May away to LA. One commonality between these two games is they seem to be kind of compressing the midfield, trying to take time and touches away from Ilya Sanchez. I know Austin I went back and watched a little bit of that game today. Austin was playing a pretty high line, but then also not pressing as much as they normally do. So it was just a really compact block for LA to play through, and almost kind of daring them to try to play it over the top and see if they could beat them that way. Like, I could see them doing that again this year, but is there a way you think Austin should be approaching this game in order to try to slow down or to stymie a really strong LAFC team?
I'd be careful with that this year. And the reason why is Christian Arango was not going to outrun you in the seams. He was more of a fox in the box. He was more get on the end of things. Bouanga can flat out run. Bouanga's quick. Bouanga's actually not someone that wants to be up in the build-up and have to deal with that. So if you ask the question of LAFC, do you want to play a little direct? They can now with Opoku and Bouanga if that's who's in the lineup. Now, we don't know that because of the CONCACAF Champions League game. I did the playoff game at LAFC last season, and that was a real struggle. When I look at it, I don't know if you want to do that. I've always been of the mindset, Landon, if you're gonna have a high line, why would you not press? Because my question is, you're gonna have a high line, but then if you're gonna allow players to kind of like pick up their heads, figure out the runs, that's the last thing I want if I'm playing LAFC. Because you got diagonals coming in behind. You've now got a 9 that can run in the seams, run in the channels. I think Twellman gives them way more quality than Latif Blessing had last year in that position. Cifuentes is in the doghouse as we speak, right? So like, there's just a lot of different profiles, but all of the athletic type on LAFC. If I'm going to play a high line, I'm going to get stuck in. I'm going to try to make the game a little ugly. I don't want them to have the ability to play direct with time, space, and the ability to pick a pass. I'm not sure I want to do that.
Yeah, I think you could argue like the alternative to that is opening up your midfield a little bit. And Austin, without Alex Ring in that midfield, they don't have a super strong defensive presence in there. And so, like, I think you press and maybe you win some stuff there and put some pressure on that back line, but then you're opening up yourself to have Ilya and Twellman.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but look at what St. Louis City did. Okay, so the difference is if you have 10 field players that are all on the same page and they press in the right moments, you actually make up for the lack of quality in certain areas. And so if all 3 in the midfield are aligned with your back 4 or 3, whatever it may be, but if you're all aligned at the same time and your positions are taken up in the right spots, you don't need to have the individual ability like you're saying with Alex Ring not being in there. Landon, if you're collectively on the same page, you can make up for that deficit. Now, it's the question is against the DNA. Exactly.
The question is, can Austin do that? And like, I don't know that many Austin FC fans would say that we're great at that at this moment.
No, so. I actually think it's more beneficial to them to sit in mid to low block. If you want to get into the tactics with them, I'm not sure I want to play a high line if I'm Austin. I'm not sure I do. Against LAFC, I'm not totally sure. Now, in saying that, as I'm thinking this through, but what if the Vancouver game is a really hard, nasty type of game that takes a lot of energy out of you?
Yeah.
Then that's different, right? So now you got to, and then you look at the 11s and you see if there's any similarities. Maybe there's tired legs. I don't know. Maybe if you run them into the ground the first 45, the second half works on in your behalf.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing.
I'll keep it in the midfield. So like I feel like for Austin fans, like Owen Wolf has been a pleasant surprise so far this year. I don't think anybody really thought that he was going to be what he's seen. You know, and he was out with the youth national team. Like in your setup, do you bring him back in and play him straight back in and you get the ball progression out of him? Or do you play like a guy like Johan Valencia, who you know is like probably more defensively solid, but also offers you nothing going forward?
Yeah, it's a good one. I don't know. I mean, it's scary for me since I've known Josh Wolf since he was 16. How eerily similar Owen plays like him. It makes me want to throw up how old I am. It's a good one. Honestly, I've done probably four. I would have to look at my notes, but for the sake of the conversation, I've probably done 4 or 5 of Valencia's games, and I'm left shrugging my shoulders. For those of you not at home just listening and can't see me, I shrug my shoulders on it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't see a ton of destroyer in him the way I thought you would.
Yeah,
Look, you guys tell me. Compare him to last year to Felipe. At least you saw Felipe when he was on the field. At least you felt Felipe's presence, better for better or worse.
yeah, I think like Valencia doesn't really make mistakes. He's in good spots defensively. He's not Diego Chara who's gonna like be flying around everywhere and killing guys all the place. He doesn't play like that, but he is in good spots defensively, wins balls, plays clean passes, receives the ball well, turns and plays, but it's sideways 6 yards, it's backwards. He's never splitting lines, he's never dribbling around someone. And these are the
No,
things that Owen Wolf has been really good at this season.
so I was just gonna say, right? So you just answered my that's my answer for Jeremiah. Then the answer is Owen Wolf, because if you're not getting, see, for me, I did LA Seattle last weekend. If Austin had Brugman, you're talking about a completely different team to me.
Yeah.
See, I think Austin misses that guy, a guy that's literally the width of the 18. Anything that comes near him, he's winning the ball. He's destroying anything there, but he's good enough to then progress possession, play it forward, get it moving the way Josh Wolf wants. They're missing that type of player. If you don't have that, then for me, Owen Wolf, give the pluses and minuses. Owen Wolf right now, there's higher pluses than there are with Valencia. The debate will be, this is going to be the first time Owen Wolf's playing a ton, right? And so you throw a national team camp in the middle of it. Sometimes it gives players a little bit of an easy feeling coming back into it. And listen, his dad's the coach. He's going to understand Owen at his finest, right? But the truth of the matter is, I've seen this where players go way to the 20s, come back. It's just a lot. They need to learn that transition in it's honestly a routine of how you get yourself back into it. But Jeremiah, I think if push comes to shove, I think I'm going Owen Wolf, because I think the pluses are higher than with Valencia, particularly getting the ball forward.
So you stick with the Wolf DNA, both metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're good on the LAFC game. Jeremiah, I think there's one other thing we wanted to mention or ask Taylor about.
Yeah, so we're just kind of reading up on you, and I'm super interested in the Think Taylor Foundation, and want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit and your passion for it, and maybe what folks can do if they hear your story, they're interested.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys mentioning it. For those of you that don't know, my career, I was in the prime of my career. I was 28. I got a nasty concussion, and about 8 weeks later, my career was over. I missed the 2010 World Cup. There was a $4 million offer for me to go to Preston North End, which at the time was the second team in the championship. And so it was really, really difficult for me to understand at 28, the thing's over. Selfishly, I started thinktaylor.org to help myself. I needed to take my mind off of myself and my struggles and help people. And I was the reigning MVP in MLS at the time. And if I wasn't getting the right treatment, what was everyone else getting? So basically what thinktaylor.org is education and awareness. We're changing the public perception of traumatic brain injuries in sports. I want sports to continue. That I don't want sports to go away, but we need to evolve. And so the last 2 or 3 years, we've had over 6 million kids, in U.S. soccer, and the different entities around that take the Think Taylor pledge. You can go to thinktaylor.org. 100% of the funds go to education and awareness tools. And I'm just trying to make a positive out of a negative. So I appreciate you guys asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always appreciated you taking time on national broadcast whenever you get a chance to say something about this cause that's really important to you, and I think is important in sports. Jeremiah and I both grew up playing high school football, and so
I have a 13-year-old playing high school football, so I'm very interested in this right now as like the parent of a student athlete.
And you guys, like, the education back then when you and I we were playing in high school, we didn't know, smelling salts, get back in. But now with education, why not make better decisions? I'm not saying get rid of sports. I've never said that. But it doesn't mean we have to head the ball 1,000 times before we're 14. We don't have to do that. And tackle football before 13, in my opinion, there's no place for it. You can still play football. We can still figure it out. So I just hope we use the tools and the resources, and we're not dumb enough and naive enough to not use the education that's around us to make better decisions and to help the future of our kids.
All right. Well, Taylor, we'll be on the broadcast with Jake Ziven this Saturday with LAFC versus Austin FC. We've really enjoyed the Apple TV content so far. Can't wait to see where it goes in the future. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work.